In America, decent people know that we don't shame and bully children. We've known that for a long time. My next guest is a young man who has stood up to bullying in the classroom. Welcome to another episode of Conversations with Dr. Carol Swain. This is the show where I get to talk about anything and everything that's on my mind. Today, we're talking about critical race theory. And my next guest is a young man who has been a victim of bullying and intimidation in the classroom. Meet Tyler McMurray. Tyler is from Southlake, Texas, and he joins us here in studio. Tyler,
Yes.
What a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me. It's been wonderful coming out here and getting to meet you.
Well, thank you. So, tell us about your experiences. What grade are you in, and when did you decide that you were going to take a stance against critical race theory?
So I'm in 7th grade and I attend, I'm now homeschooled, but I used to attend Southlake Carol. And when I decided to stand up to critical race theory was when my social studies teacher told us that all white people are oppressors and that we are in debt to blacks because of slavery. And that just did not sit right with me because that's not how kids treat each other. And
Well, let's stop for a second. Tell us about your social studies teacher. Was she white or black? And was this one class, or was this a theme that you heard repeated?
well, my social studies teacher was white, and you can definitely tell that she supported critical race theory. I honestly do not think it was taught in other classes, but you can definitely tell that most of the teachers the majority of them were actually the younger teachers who supported critical race theory, but just didn't want to speak up about it because they might get in trouble. So.
Well, the thing about it, and I guess this is for you, but also for the audience, teachers' ed programs today are so steeped in critical race theory that the teachers that are coming out of those places tend to be very indoctrinated. And so when they're telling you that you are an oppressor, that you're guilty of systemic racism and white privilege, they're telling you something that they've been indoctrinated with.
Yes, ma'am. This is why I don't believe this at all, because before this time when critical race theory started to happen, I did not see this in our classrooms at all. In fact, I have never seen anyone in my school district, in my experience, be racist to another kid because of their skin color. We always try to be respectful to everyone we meet because God made us all equal and looks at us all in the same way, and we are made in His image, and that's perfect. So to judge someone based on their skin color is just completely wrong.
Well, it's also against our civil rights laws. And I don't know if you're familiar with my new book, Black Eye for America, How Critical Race Theory is Burning Down the House. And this critical theory, it is un-American.
Yes, ma'am.
As I said, in my introduction, we don't tease and bully people because of immutable characteristics like the color of their skin. And we have civil rights laws in place to protect, people like you.
Yes, ma'am.
And you're also male. And so have you heard in school anything about toxic masculinity or anything about men being oppressors?
Not necessarily, because my teacher is very trying to target critical race theory, and
they're kind of obsessed with it, aren't
yes, they are, very much so. But they're just trying to intimidate people, based on the color of their skin, or if they know that they're a different political party than they are, then they're going to try to intimidate you and make you believe in critical race theory. So no, I do not think I have seen male bullying, but I just
It's a
Yeah.
critical feminist
Yeah.
theory. You have to
Yeah.
get older, I guess, to encounter that. Well, tell me about your classmates. How did they react, and were there minorities in the classroom when this was being said, and were they comfortable with it?
Well, after class, me and my friends were just like talking like, that's not right at all. And we were just like totally agreeing with each other. I'm like, where did this come from? Like, we never seen this before. And there were minorities, but they are also my friends, and they totally agreed with me. So we all agree in the classroom because we experience it firsthand every single day in the classroom what critical race theory is, and we know the truth. And we all agree that it's very, very wrong.
It also can divide people because it treats racial and ethnic minorities as if they are victims.
Yes, ma'am.
And less capable, because in some schools, and I don't know about the school that you were in before you exercised your choice to exit, but they lower standards by getting rid of advanced placement courses. And I don't know if you've heard the argument, because it doesn't apply to Texas, but in some states they're saying that math is racist, and this comes from a study that the Gates Foundation funded, but they're making the case pretty much that there's racism in mathematics.
Well, I think that they're trying to say that different colors of skin are, let's say, come from a very troubled background, and they should be treated. In my school district, they were actually considering upping 10 points in their grades just because of the color of their skin. And that's just totally oblivious, because maybe they work hard for their grades and they don't want to have those extra 10 points added to them because they are putting in the time and effort. But for the people that do not understand math correctly and they are a different color of skin, that doesn't mean they...
That doesn't mean anything.
Yeah,
and I can
I mean-
tell you, you may or may not know my background, but I dropped out of school.
Yes, ma'am.
And so when I did go to college, at a community college, I had to take remedial math to be able to take algebra and later stats. And so I had to work really hard.
Yes, ma'am.
But I was able to learn what I needed to learn to be successful. And math isn't easy. Like there are people that are the creative types, and I'm a creative type.
Mm-hmm.
Like I should have been an artist,
Yes,
not a
ma'am.
political scientist. But like you don't want to sit down and work out all those problems.
Yeah.
And there are math. I know some black math professors and math teachers, and they were able to master the subject. And so it's very offensive and demeaning to racial and ethnic minorities to say that because of the color of their skin that they can't compete, and you have to drop the standards for them to be able to
Right.
do what they need to do.
Yes, ma'am. So they're basically saying because of the color of their skin, they should be treated differently because in math, because they wanted to help them more than other different.
That's not
kinds of
helping
races.
someone if
It's like-
you
it's
are
not-
lowering the standards.
Right.
And
It's cheating themselves, basically.
and when I went through college and after the civil rights movement, there was a lot of focus on equal opportunity. And so that was non-discrimination, your ability to compete. We had to compete. We were not allowed, to just get extra points and be passed through because of the color of our skin. We need to take a break. And after our break, we'll continue this conversation. We'll be back in a moment.
Conversations with Dr. Carol Swain is made possible by Cooper Steel, a family-owned business that provides the steel fabrications for some of the greatest buildings across the United States. 60 years ago, Kenneth and Faye Cooper founded their company in Shelbyville, Tennessee.
Cooper Steel believes in sponsoring Carol Swain because we believe as she does, you build strong, you stand strong.
What started as a vision and now a nationally recognized and operated company that remains true to its founders' Judeo-Christian values and principles. Cooper Steel is committed to excellence, responsibility, and community. Cooper Steel's motto is, build strong, stand strong. They treat their employees and customers like family. Thank you to Cooper Steel for standing strong with Conversations with Dr. Carol Swain. Learn more about our generous sponsor at coopersteel.com. Black Eye for America is enlightening the nation.
I would definitely encourage people to buy the book to learn a little bit more about what critical race theory is actually rooted in, Marxism.
Buy the book at BeThePeopleNews.com or wherever books are sold.
Just so we can have logical and practical conversations with people who are getting misinformation and disinformation from social media, from their friends.
Now an Amazon bestseller and available on Kindle.
Absolutely. It's a must-read book.
I'm back with my guest, Tyler, who stood up to the school system, his school system, on critical race theory. Tyler, you have a lot of courage for a young man. And so I'm very curious about your family. What is it that has given you the ability at 12 years old to take a stance?
Well, I grew up on very Christian conservative values, and my parents always taught me to treat someone with respect no matter what their background is, because God made us all equally, and we're all made in His image, which is perfect. So, and also what made me is we fostered cared my brothers that we adopted now, and when they came into our homes, we could tell very quickly that they were very behind in their academics, and they are also white, so that just goes to show you they came from poverty, abuse, drugs.
You mean they were not privileged? I thought all white people were privileged. You mean
Yes.
you found some that weren't?
Yes, ma'am. That just goes to show you that we're not born privileged, honestly, because of the color of our skin. We all can come from very troubled backgrounds. It's just up to us what we decide to do with it, unless we play the victim role or if we decide to take a stand and change our life for the better.
Now, Tyler, how old were you when your foster brothers came into the household?
I think I was like 8 years old, 8 or 7, and I loved them with all my heart, and they're just so fun to be around. But
were they always fun, or were they, when they first arrived, were they kind of rough around the edges?
They were very rough around the edges because they just had to, they weren't taught with like basic rules, like let's say don't talk back or
don't use foul language.
Yes. So we had to reconstruct them at a very late age where they should be learning this at like 3 maybe.
Right.
And so it was just a step behind for us, but they eventually picked up on things, and they're doing very good today.
It sounds like your family showed them a lot of love and understood, when they brought them into your home, that they were bringing in children that were troubled, and that there would be some difficulties. I think it takes a very special person who will, raise someone else's child, because you never know what you're getting.
Yes, ma'am.
That's the same, I think, with adoption. A lot of times you don't know the background of that person, what they've seen, and so it takes special people to do that.
Right.
And so you were raised in a strong Christian home.
Yes, ma'am.
And you've gone to this high school. Are most of your classmates Christians, or is it really very diverse, and so you have people from different racial and ethnic backgrounds?
Well, I would say it's about 50-50, to be honest with you, because a lot of my friends that I hang out with are Christian, but there are also minorities, and like
Black, Hispanic?
Yes, like we have a lot of
Asian?
Indian kids and Asian kids, and sometimes they're not all Christian because maybe they came from India at a very young age, but they still have their values from when they were in India. So maybe they like worship Hinduism or, but you all
get along?
Yes, we all get along. So we never it never crosses our mind to look at someone in their skin color.
Right.
We just look at someone and treat them how they act. It's like called the golden rule: treat someone how you want to be treated. And so we just try to be respectful.
Well, let me ask you this, Tyler. With the social studies teacher that you had the encounter with, did you speak up at that point in the classroom, or did you sort of go home and talk with your parents and simmer a bit and challenge her later?
I decided to go home and talk to my parents first, but what I did to fight back, I spoke up at a school board meeting.
Oh, really?
Yes, ma'am. So I talked about the mask mandate and critical race theory. So, and you can tell that like everyone sees that it's in our town. We look at the school board meetings, so that I thought that was a good opportunity to get through to her, saying that what she said was not right and that she should never say that again because it's not true.
Well, how did she react?
You could just tell after my school board meeting, she would like throw shade to me, not like treat me different than everyone else in the classroom.
Oh, that's interesting. I haven't heard the expression. Would you explain to the audience what throw shade is? It's the way someone looks at you, or they don't look at you?
It's just like they treat us different than everyone else. Not that they're necessarily being mean to us.
Where's she from? Do you know where she came from?
She told us at the very start of the year she was from New Mexico, but she's white. She grew up in she was raised in a trailer. So then I think she came at the age of like 5th grade over to Texas, and I'm not sure if she's Christian or if she's conservative.
But we know she's woke.
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Well, hopefully, getting to know you and hearing from the parents, and I know a little bit about Southlake, Texas.
Yes.
I know some of the people there, and you have been very successful in electing school board members and I think city council members because parents did stand up, and obviously, children stood up too if you spoke before the school board. And I see these videos on the news where there are other children who are standing up, and I think people are listening because you have a right to stand up and speak, and I believe that what you say carries great authority.
Yes, because kids experience it firsthand in the classroom. Like I said earlier, we are on the front lines. We know what's going on with critical race theory, so we have the best viewpoint of what's going on. So if we just stand up and fight against critical race theory as kids who are educated and strong men and women, there's no way we can lose to critical race theory.
Well, this other thing, when you think about critical race theory and the power that a teacher has, because a teacher is an authority figure, do you think some of your classmates might have been persuaded that she was onto something? Because I can imagine that you could have someone that maybe they come from a disadvantaged family, that they're poor, and they see other people that are thriving. It doesn't have to be white people, it could be other minorities that have more. If you're looking to blame someone for your situation, maybe you come from a one-parent family, everyone else has a two-parent family, I can imagine that what the teacher said would help some people say, oh yeah, that's right, I'm a victim of systemic racism, these other people are to blame for my plight.
Yes, ma'am. They're basically teaching people who came from a troubled background to think that they are victims of the system, and telling them that they are minorities and trying to make them feel bad for themselves. And
it gives them an excuse.
Yes,
because if you're a victim of systemic racism, and I don't know, how well you understand the ideology behind critical race theory, but part of what they argue, not just that whites are racist and it's in their DNA and all white people have privilege, they also argue that racism is permanent. And so if racism is permanent, there's nothing you can do about it. And they make it seem that all racial and ethnic minorities, especially blacks, are victims and that they're less capable. And that is the part that's insulting. And I find it very insulting also that they make it seem as if that only white people have an obligation to be anti-racist because minorities are not capable of being racist, and we know that that's not true. And so they set up something that is false, and I would argue, and I do, that it's to advance a political agenda that really has nothing to do with minorities, that the critical race theory has Marxist roots, as well as being rooted in other ideologies that are anti-American. And so you have certainly done the right thing. We're going to take another break, and when we return, we want to hear your young wisdom about some ways that we can fight back and be a stronger nation. We'll be back after this word from our sponsors.
Dr. Carol Swain's Be the People, a call to reclaim America's faith and promise, newly released in paperback and audio with a new introduction, is a challenge to all Americans. If you are serious about being the best citizen you can be, this is the book for you. From addressing moral relativism to reclaiming the future, you'll understand why Dr. Swain is one of the most relevant voices in today's culture war. Are you ready to reclaim America's faith and promise? Purchase at bethepeoplenews.com/books or wherever books are sold. Cooper Steel is a family-owned business that provides the steel fabrications for some of the greatest buildings across the United States. 60 years ago, Kenneth and Faye Cooper founded their company in Shelbyville, Tennessee. What started as a vision and now a nationally recognized and operated company that remains true to its founders' Judeo-Christian values and principles. Cooper Steel's motto is, "Build strong, stand strong." Thank you to Cooper Steel for standing strong with Conversations with Dr. Carol Swain.
Welcome back. More with Tyler. Now, Tyler, so much has happened in your young life.
Yes,
And I'm curious, were you shy at any point? And what was it that led you to stand before the school board? How were you selected to do that, or did you ask to do it?
I asked my mom actually, but the main thing I was scared of is backlash from my friends. And I think that's why we don't have a lot of kids. Well, we do, but we could have more kids speaking up today, but they're just scared of losing a friend over this fight.
Did you lose any friends?
No, ma'am, I did not.
So you're such a super guy that your friends love you so much, and that smile that they understood.
Yes, ma'am. A lot of my friends were actually wanting to speak up after that, and I think that was a really cool thing because I felt like I made an impact in our school system, and I was just very proud of that.
Well, Tyler, so you've become a leader,
Yes, ma'am.
a child CRT leader, and I don't think I know any other child CRT leaders. There must be some in Northern Virginia and various places, but you're the only one that I've met and I've interviewed. Did you think of yourself as a leader before this issue came along?
I honestly did not, because I thought I was just a person trying to make an impact, and I was just trying to.
You were just a regular kid,
yes,
right?
I was just thinking of myself as a regular kid trying to fight a bad cause and just
Well,
wanting to put a stop to it.
Let's go back to before the social studies teacher told you, that you had white privilege and that your ancestors were the root cause of all evil in the world. What were you just, normal, interested in sports? Had you thought about leadership? Have you ever wanted to run for office? I want to know the kid before the social studies teacher spoke up.
Well, I love football, and I always wanted to be the captain of a football team or play for the Dallas Cowboys one day. So I just thought
You
of myself.
still might.
Yes, I just thought of myself as a normal kid, but once I started getting into critical race theory and getting to do these wonderful interviews with so many people, it just really has inspired me because these are the people that are making a difference in the world, and I really want to be one of those people who are fighting a bad cause.
Well, let's get spiritual. I'm a Christian like you,
Yes,
and
ma'am.
so we have conversion experiences as a moment where we know that we want to follow Christ. We get baptized. So have you had that experience, and if so, at what age?
It was really a funny story. So I was in a Chick-fil-A line with my mom at the age of 5, and I used to always watch these Bible videos for kids, and it was really cool demonstration. I still remember to this day. He got this really dirty white T-shirt, and he said, "This is us before Christ," and he put it in a washing machine, and when it came out, it was like as white as can be. And I just thought that was really cool. So I asked my mom in the line if I could be saved, and she said yes. And I got baptized at, some of you may know that if you live by us, Gateway Church. And so that was pretty cool.
And so you were 5 years old.
Yes, ma'am.
And some people listening might say, well, that's a hokey
Yeah.
story, and a 5-year-old.
I'm not
How
able
could
to
you know
understand.
that you wanted to follow Christ? And so now you're 12, and you have a deeper, probably, understanding of your faith. And so how has your faith grown since 5 years old?
It honestly starts with reading the Bible more and praying more. And the Holy Spirit will grow deeper in your walk with the Lord.
So is God calling you to be this leader, and has He anointed you to do this? And is this something you feel like you're being led to do this?
I've put a lot of thought and I've prayed a lot about it. And I feel like God is calling me, this is my calling to make an impact in the world and to speak up against a wrong causing. So.
Right. And we know in our audience, I hope everyone knows that racism is always sin.
Yes.
And we have a sin problem in this country, and that the biblical justice is not the same as social justice. And I find it very unfortunate that some of our churches have followed the path of looking to the secular world for how to deal with race. And so that some of the churches, maybe not in South Lake, Texas, but in Nashville, they have embraced CRT and intersectionality.
Well, I think they're just giving in. They don't have the courage to stand up, because that's just not obeying the Bible at all. And if you are a preacher or a pastor,
Preach it.
that is your job. I mean, so.
Yeah, I think also they don't understand CRT. And so
Right.
what we need to do, Tyler, is make sure that they get a copy of my new book.
Yes.
And so after they read it, and especially the chapter that deals with Christianity in America, I think that they'll have a better idea of what the Christian stance can be. And you think about racial reconciliation, it takes two sides to reconcile. And, from one man, God made all nations of men, and we are brothers and sisters in Christ. And we have the formula that could actually solve race problems if we didn't just follow the world.
Yes, ma'am. Going back to they don't understand critical race theory, I think they are judging a book by its cover. They look at critical race theory and think they're telling people not to be racist. So I like that. But what really critical race theory is telling people to judge someone by their skin. It's completely opposite.
But it's racist.
Yes, it's completely racist.
It's totally racist, and it is white supremacy itself, because it's saying that white people are above other people. And Ty, you have thought a lot about this issue, and so if you were, the governor of a state, if you were a president, or if you were somebody in a position of power, and you're trying to solve our race problems, what would you do?
I would just tell people you have to do the right thing to start off with. You just look at someone, if they are being mean to you because of their color, you just say hi back and have a nice day. That can make an impact. It's like, whoa.
You mean they can be, if someone is being mean to you because you're white,
Right.
you will respond positive and in a loving way, and that can impact that person because
Yes.
you're not going to go down that path?
Yes, ma'am. If you just be mean back to them, it just makes the problem worse. So
you spend a lot of time smiling, don't you?
yes, ma'am. So I always just tried to influence someone, saying in Christly matter. If they say, "Oh, you're an oppressor," I'm like, "Okay, have a nice day." So I mean, maybe I could have impacted them. It's like,
I know it's not worth getting into an
Right.
argument with them because
It
they're trying to trigger you.
right.
And so when you respond with kindness, it sort of disarms them sometimes.
Yes, ma'am. It just because they're expecting for us to fire back at them. So
And if you say, "Oh no, I'm not a racist," then
Yes.
they say, "Well, you're not aware of your racism," and so you pretty much have unconscious racism. You're not aware of it, and so it's a battle that you really can't win.
right.
So tell us, like, if people want to contact you or support whatever you're doing, because you have become a young, I'm going to call you, the buzzword is influencer. So you are a young influencer when it comes to this issue. Do you have a website? Do you have a way that people can contact you?
Yes, ma'am. I recently just wrote an op-ed for Rebecca Friedrichs at Prager University, and that will be releasing in her new documentary. And you can also follow me on Instagram, and it have an account for all my interviews and see what I'm doing to fight critical race theory.
Well, Ty, it has been an honor to have you on this show, and hopefully, we will check back in with you. And I believe it may take a couple of years, but we will win this battle, and we will win it because of young people like you.
Yes, ma'am.
So thanks so much for
Thank you
being
for
on
having
this
me.
episode of Conversations. We'll be back after this word from our sponsors. Many ask, why should I care about critical race theory? I'm Dr. Carol Swain, and along with Dr. Christopher Shore, we've authored a new book, Black Eye for America, How Critical Race Theory is Burning Down the House. Every American should care about CRT because this radical Marxist philosophy is dividing our country and torture our children, but we're going to stop it. Endorsed by Dr. Ben Carson, Black Eye for America is a playbook on combating CRT. Wasn't Tyler McMurray impressive? Wouldn't we want all of our young men to be like him, to be so strong? And so I thank you for tuning in to this episode, learning more about CRT. And we can win this battle. It's going to take all of us, young, old, different walks of life, different races and ethnicities. We can stand for truth. And critical race theory, I consider it the civil rights issue of our day. We have to stand together. We can win. See you next week.